Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As we see, Tom Rowe doesn't seem to have made it, so I will try to represent Tom Rowe as well, since I know him very well. It'll be a little bit difficult because Tom is a very interesting speaker, and if you know him, he'd make it very amusing. He'd probably have an amusing speech for you, but at the moment you may know that next week we have in Brussels the ASEM Summit meeting. These summits take place only every 2 years. The last one was in Beijing, and Tom is the key person preparing that summit. So unless he runs in the middle of the speech, I imagine he's probably making some speeches for President Barroso or some preparation of that summit. We've been working together quite a lot on that. Where do I come from? I come from in the Commission on it's called AIDCO. It's on the aid cooperation side. I don't think the name is very good. I think it may well change in the future. I think we're seeing some change in the Commission. You maybe heard about the new external service. I think we're going to see some change on the aid side. I think it will probably be called more cooperation in future. Forgetting about the aid mentality, but more the idea of cooperation. And that is really the framework in which we are working in this area. I'm happy to be here today to meet you, to meet some colleagues I know quite well from the context of TAME. What I should stress first of all is that we have been supporting TAME, we've been supporting this type of initiative through the regional strategy which we have within the European Union and Asia. And that's been a fairly long-term commitment, and it's not from one day to the next. We've had various projects over the last 10 years or so. And I think we're moving into an interesting stage now when these projects are up and running, and there are a number of challenges to see what the next stages should be. I find it interesting that it's not just something we're doing with Asia, but something we're doing worldwide. I was a couple of years ago, I was in Latin America, in Uruguay, and there we had the ALICE project. Similar project. I remember being present at the launch of the ALICE project, and I remember for me, because I'm a total non-technical person, but at the launch I saw a few demonstrations of the technology and of what can be done, including telemedicine, including calibrating telescopes in Chile, and these being run from Europe. And I was really, my eyes were open. That was about 3 years ago, to what was possible through that ALICE program. Last week some of us were in Central Asia. An interesting event launching the CAREN project, and the CAREN project Central Asia is rather similar to TAME. And we now have three of the countries of Central Asia, we launched that, are connected in the same way. We're trying to encourage the other two countries which are staying on the sidelines to join, and we had an interesting debate there in Kyrgyzstan, Bishkek, last week, and some of us were there. And so this is something which is being done all over the world, and there's a lot of connection going on. I think from the point of view of development cooperation funds being used for this, I think we can justify to European taxpayers that it's interesting to start off with, but then there comes the question of sustainability. We start something off, we want to encourage this to happen, but we want to look at that. And so I think in your debates today, there are perhaps a number of challenges, and I have colleagues who will be staying perhaps to discuss this a little bit more. I think the getting the systems up and running is interesting. Then the questions arise of being able to show the benefits, being able to have applications which are useful. Last week in New York, it was the big conference on the Millennium Development Goals, and a huge commitment from the world to Millennium Development Goals, and this is relevant, but can we show that it's relevant? I sometimes have difficulties explaining to my hierarchy how this fits in, how this fits in, but it does, and I think it's important that we can show those connections. As these systems move forward, then questions arise about cost. More and more people join. Can the cost be brought down? And can we have competition? These issues were arising in Central Asia last week, the cost of the systems, the competition, and there are questions which are posed there. We would very much like more people to join. I'm convinced, having seen how these things work, I'm very much convinced about how these systems can give an opportunity, can open up possibilities for exchange of information between research institutions. What we saw in Central Asia were very important implications for the whole question of seismology. Central Asia is a region prone to earthquakes, and already information can be sent around, which is vital to being able to predict when these are going to happen. There are many aspects of applications which can be useful. And then, as I say, the question which maybe you'll be looking at later on in the afternoon, sustainability. What is sustainability? And I come back to the conference next week. At the conference next week, ASEAN leaders will be talking about sustainable development. There will be a declaration about sustainable development, which which we've been working on, which has lots of interesting words. I think there will be references, and I hope there will be references to ICT contained in that declaration. But the question of sustainable development then is something which the leaders will all agree is useful. But what do we mean by it? How can we make things sustainable? Both the question of the finance, cost sharing, and eventually taking over the costs, and the organisation, setting up organisations which facilitate things. How does that get taken on board later? So I think those are some of the issues which will be addressed today. And I'm sure Tom would very much like to be here, because this is being supported both by DG RELEX and also by us in DG ECO. We are continuing our commitment to it. We're preparing the next, which will probably be the last phase of the financing, but we're preparing that right now. We've been discussing it over the summer. What form should that take, and how do we build into that last stage of financing the idea of passing the thing over, taking account of the interests of the different countries, looking at organisations which can be sustainable in the long term. So I hope it's a productive day. I hope you'll find it interesting today, and I wish success to today's meeting. Thank you very much.